My 1990 GMC Grumman Olson step van, which I've converted into my own tiny home. Before I bought the van, I was living in a series of rooms in people's houses, paying rent, which I never really saw any profit from. I figured that I was paying for a place to sleep while I went to school or went to work, and I felt really unfulfilled. When I started seeing tiny houses and people living in sailboats, that really caught my attention until I found van life on YouTube. And I just devoured every build, every conversion that I could get my hands on, and that just lit a fire under me. So when I saw this van up for sale, I knew that this would be the perfect framework for me to build my home in. So this is the back door. This is what it looks like when I'm in stealth mode. When I'm parked in the city, I keep this down so that no one knows that I've got a tiny house in there. When I'm out in the country, I put that up, and then I have access to my back door and this beautiful tiny house facade. At the back here, I have my plant, which goes up across here. I try and open this door as much as I can to give it light. And my Dutch door, which actually is not the front door. It might look like one. But here you can see that there's actually a bed behind here. So I open this up to get a nice breeze or a nice view when I'm parked out in the country. When it's nice and warm out here, it can really, really help. Underneath, I have access to my storage space, and I've got my bicycle, my kayak, and all these other things that I just sort of throw underneath of there. I keep my propane tank on the outside of this wall so that if it then ever leaks or has any problems, there's not going to be any gas which gets into the vehicle itself. There's also a drain underneath of here, so when the roll-up door is down, it has airflow as well. And I've just sort of tried to hide it as much as I can, just make it a little bit more pretty with this vine here. And then over here, I just keep some firewood in this box here, paint and stuff like that. And then there's room for my fishing rod and stuff. And in the winter, my skis will go up there. This vehicle was originally a mobile mechanics truck, but I bought it from the previous owner who had done a conversion in it himself. However, that conversion, I really didn't like the way it was constructed or the way that it looked, so I tore it all out and started from scratch. So this is what the build looks like, and I'm going to show it to you as it is as I'm living in it. I did a little bit of cleaning up because there was some dirty dishes, but other than that, this is the way that it actually looks like when I'm using it. This is my kitchen. It's up against the divider between the cab and the living space. I keep most of my things on the wall here, as you can see, plates and knives and cups, and my cast iron cookware goes up on the wall on hooks. And then I've got two of these little fruit baskets. You see these in a lot of builds. They are great for keeping your fruit not bruised in a moving vehicle. And then pretty much everything that I use on a daily basis goes up on this shelf here. There's a little switch, and I can flick that on and I get a lot of under cabinet lighting. This is really great, especially at night when I'm doing some cooking or washing dishes or something. It just gives me a better angle for the light. In the corner here is where I have my sink. This cutting board pops right up, and then I have a faux copper sink mounted directly underneath of it. Right now the faucet is this little camp one here, and it's hooked up to a pedal on the floor as well as an electric water pump, so that when you use your foot, you get water. Here you can see I've got my 3-burner hob here. This has been really, really great for me. I love cooking with propane gas. It's so much better than any electric stove I've ever had. Here's where I'm keeping my spices. They work so much better in this drawer because I can actually read what they say on the top here, and then just other kitchen stuff that I need. This is my Coleman cooler. This is what I'm using right now for refrigeration. I really don't like this solution, and I'm hopefully going to be upgrading fairly soon, but for now it's what I can afford and it works well enough. Under here is where I have access to my 2 jerry cans, which I use for potable water, as well as more storage for things which aren't actually kitchen related, but this seemed like a good place to keep them. Art supplies, that sort of thing. Up above here, I've installed a fantastic fan, which I've modified with this little switch here to be reversible. It's really great in this position because it's able to work as a range hood and extract any odors that would come from cooking. I like to use a lot of spices and stuff, so that's going to be a problem in a small space, so this is really great for dealing with that. It took me about 4 months of pretty solid building to get to the stage where I was actually able to live in it and where it actually looks and feels like a home. I've been living in the van for about a month now, and it's really interesting to see how I thought things were going to work out and then how I actually used my space. So I'm really happy that not everything is completed, because it's going to give me a chance when I go in ahead and make those final touches to really fine-tune things to the way that I actually live and how I use this space. Going from a rental room to the back of a step van involved a lot of downsizing. However, this is quite a spacious space for a vehicle. It's 84 square feet in the living space, it's 7 feet across, and from wall to wall in the living portion of the van, it's just over 12 feet. Directly next to my kitchen, I have my bench seating here. This is really great because I'm able to sit in it like this, or a lot of times I'll pile up my cushions and sort of read a book like this. And of course, this all lifts up. So underneath of here is my composting toilet. This composting toilet is a very simple 2-bucket system. I've just covered it up here because maybe people don't want to see that. It just looks like a bunch of sawdust, exactly like this bucket pretty much. But it's a pretty simple setup. I've got a jar here for when I'm in the city and I can't just go pee in a bush. And then my toilet paper comes up, fits into that hole there to be easily accessible. I've gotten a lot of questions about this. A lot of people really don't believe that this doesn't smell, especially in such a small space. And the truth is that it just doesn't smell. It smells exactly like this, smells exactly like that, which is sawdust, and you gotta stick your face right in it if you want to get any odor. This is a really great solution, I think, for people who are doing this sort of lifestyle because it doesn't require the use of any water or chemicals. In this side of the bench, I have clothes storage. I keep my socks and underwear, some sweaters, pants, towels, and then I keep all my electronics under here as well. Down below here is the 2000 watt power inverter which I installed. Right now I'm running my laptop cable, which comes up behind here, a corner in the bed, so that I'm able to use it in bed or sitting on the bench. Mounted on the side here is my PWM solar charge controller, which came with the 100 watt Renogy solar panel on the roof, as well as a volt reader and battery capacity meter. So right now I'm at 100% capacity and 13.1 volts. Underneath the bed here is this pull-out table. It comes out on heavy-duty drawer slides, and it's great because it gives me a big work surface to work on when I'm doing art or something like that, and it's also a really comfortable position to eat my meals from on this bench. I have access behind this curtain to all of the storage underneath of my bed. And I've also built myself a little bit of a bookshelf here in the corner. A shower is really important. I knew I wanted to have one on board, but I didn't want to have like a physical shower room or box inside this space because I felt like that would make this whole space feel very claustrophobic. So instead what I opted for is a basin which I keep under my bed, and I pull that out. I've got 4 hooks in my ceiling right under the sky hatch, and I can hang my shower curtain off of that. Then I can place my weed pump sprayer on top of my wood stove, and that serves as my shower. I knew that I wanted a fixed bed. I didn't want to have one of those ones that pulls out on the slats or a couch which converts into a bed. But I also wanted to have a big living space, so this is a twin mattress. It's the smallest mattress that I've ever slept on, and I've had a few people on my YouTube videos say that I can't fit in it. So just because that's what people said, there we go. Nice and comfortable. Right here I have my windowsill and a little charging station for my phone. Curtains can be drawn, and then this stained glass at night, I have this little piece of Reflectix, which just gets put in there and held in place with friction. The back here tends to be a little bit of a cluttered nightstand, but these two lids lift up, and in one I have clothes storage, and in the other I have my laundry. I've just dropped down the roll-up door. You can see that there's no light coming in through here, and there's a gap over here where that comes into the main area. So when it's cold out, what I do is I have these pool noodles. So when they're stuffed into this gap, that stops any cold air from coming up over top of the wall here. I'm a full-time student with a day job, so I'm tied to one city. And that's okay with me because I am pursuing my dream of becoming a school teacher. So this van for me is a way for me to live my life on my own terms, with the flexibility of being able to move whenever it's required of me, which happens quite frequently. And before, that was always a problem. Now it's just a simple matter of putting the key in the ignition and driving a little bit to wherever I need to go. This is my writing desk, and it's probably my favorite feature of the van. I just have this little IKEA stool here, which is the perfect height, and it folds nice and flat. And then this desk is adjustable to several different heights, but the most common one that I use is this one right here. So it's on a little bit of an angle, which is nice for when I'm writing. I have access to my USB and 12-volt outlets. Up above here underneath the bookshelf, I have an overhead light, which is fantastic. And of course, this can also be an easel if I want it to be. This wood stove came with the van. I absolutely love it. I built this penny hearth, which unfortunately has started to come apart, but I've sort of decided to let as many of the pennies come off as I can before I re-glue them down, just because I don't want to be constantly doing it. I'd rather let the ones that are really firmly in place stay there, and none have come off in a while, so that's going to be a project which is going to have to happen pretty soon. This thing can heat the van up very, very quickly, a little too quickly maybe sometimes, and it doesn't take all that much wood to get really hot, so that's really great. This is the door to the cab. I decided that I would paint a mural on it because I just wanted to have a big piece of my own art in here, and I really like her. This section here isn't finished at all. There needs to be some sort of shelves or something here, but I haven't quite figured out what I'm doing. This funnel here is really useful as a drain. There's a hole in the floor down there, but it's not very beautiful, so I'm going to have to find a better way of doing this corner, but for now, it'll do. Right now in the summer, while I'm not going to school, I spend 3 days in the city working, and then the next 4 I spend out in the country going hiking, kayaking, walking in the woods, spending as much time away from the city as I can. This is the cab. It's a big cab, and I've got a great view of everything in here. I often spend some time in this chair because it's comfortable. There's this sort of like desk space here, so depending on where I am, it might actually be brighter in the cab than it is in the back, but I try and spend as little bit of amount of time in here as I can, and I haven't done any work to make this look pretty because it should just kind of look like a work truck. I've got 2 storage units up here over top of the dash here. These boards just come right out, so I've got some like spare motor oil, antifreeze, that kind of stuff, and just keep supplies for building and stuff up there because it's nice and hidden. My advice for anyone who's thinking about doing a build like this, go on YouTube and watch people build their vans. There's a lot of great resources out there, people who have filmed their builds, and just look at how people built their vans and you will very quickly be able to do it yourself. It can be very daunting and it can feel a little bit overwhelming because there's a lot of new learning involved, but it's all very simple when it comes right down to it. Even things which seem complicated like solar are actually very, very simple. So someone else has already done it before you. Ask questions. People are more than happy to answer, and then just do the work yourself. Get yourself some basic power tools. You can do a lot with just a drill and a saw if that's all that you have available. Do the work yourself and you will not regret it.